Okay, welcome back, guys. Today we are going to continue where we left off with the business class shaders and show you how to add some material zones if you don't have any. Sometimes you'll have something that has full material zones and it's only got one material zone and you'd like it to have more. So we're going to show you how to do that. So today we're going to work with the awesome D4 sweater vest outfit for Genesis 8 male. From Barbara Brendan and Umblefugly, and it's a Daz original. If you haven't seen it, it's an awesome piece. It's a full outfit. Let me show it to you here. So basically you have a sweater and a shirt and pants, and it comes with one texture, which is this argyle texture, which is nice, but what if you want to change colors and etc., etc. It also comes with some extra textures, but they're all plain colors. So maybe you want to do something a little bit different, so we're going to help you expand it a little bit, but this is a great outfit to start with. So let's take a look at what we've got. So this is the basic shade or texture that comes with the sweater. Don't mind the fireflies, it's just recording because it's in, resolving because it's in iRay mode for the viewport. So this is what it looks like to start with. Now, I just want to say up front, when we do this and create some more material zones so that you can put more than one pattern on this, the reason we're going to do this is because we'd like to put a pattern here on the arm trim, a plain one, or around the neck or around the waistband. And when you do this, you're going to be changing the model a little bit, not changing the model, but changing where the faces go, where the material zones go. So if you want to save this, I'm going to show you how to do that, save your sweater in this state, and you don't override your original stuff, or if you reinstall the sweater for some reason, it doesn't get wiped out. So let's get started. I'm going to go ahead, now that you've seen a look at this, we're going to move over and start with another model and show you how to do it, because what we want to do is turn this one into something like, let's go over here to the other sweater vest that we have, and we'll turn this one off and turn this one on and bring this guy over here. And in order to do that, we want to take a look at this one here. So you'll see it has more material zones, and we'll wait till it resolves, but you can see now if you want to do this, and I'm just using a really bright color to show you the differences. You may want a completely different color setup, but what we've done with this one is we've basically added a material zone for around the neck and around the armholes and around the waist. And you can see that we have one style of sweater with a pattern on it on the base of the sweater, and then we have a different pattern, which is that kind of tight ribbing along the waist and also on the arms and the neckline here. So how do we get from the original to here? We're going to start with the basic setup of the sweater. We don't need the model, don't need it on anything. You could do it while it's on a model, but it's probably harder. So we want to look at the material zones. So let me come back to the original, and you'll see when I turn this one back on, you will see that if we select with our surfaces tool, you'll see when we click this, you'll see over here we've got the sweater vest and there's nothing with it. It's got one material zone. And you'll see on the one that I've done here that it has the waist, neckline, arm trim, and the main piece itself. So how do we get from here to here? Well, first of all, we're going to go ahead and look at the original. Let me put this one away, and we'll turn this one off, and we'll go back to this original here, and we're going to go out of iRay mode now that you've seen the textures, and we'll come back to texture shaded because it's easier to work that way. And all you're really going to do is basically create some zones that I showed you on the one that had already been done. And if you haven't done this, this is not necessarily for a sale setup or anything like this. If you were doing stuff for sale, you probably want to do it in some other program, but this is kind of a down and dirty if you're just doing it for a render and you need something like that fairly quickly and you go, oh, I would like to have different materials in different zones. Some models are easier to do this on than others, and you may try it and it may be too complicated and you can't get exactly what you want, but it's worth a shot if you want to do something quick like this. Some models are better than others, so let's take a look. If you haven't done it before, you can come over here to the geometry editor, which is under your tool settings, and then come down here to geometry editor, and it's going to show you the face groups that you have and the surfaces. So while you have a lot of face groups, which work on the model, you don't have a lot of surfaces. All you have, and if you can drag this out, all you have is one material zone, so you can only apply one texture at a time to it. So what we're going to do is learn to select the area that we want and then name it a new material zone. And as we do so, you'll see how many, the count here is going to go down. As we make each zone, this is going to reduce and then move itself into the new zone. And it will go down accordingly, and then you'll be left with a lower number here from the original, which will end up being the base. So we're going to use this tool here to basically select what we need. And sometimes it'll go in a loop and make a ring around the model if the modeling's really good. And that's your preferred version. So when you go over top of this, you'll see the little red cursor. Okay, the way you're going to do this, and you have to be a little bit careful because we're going to use kind of a looping function, and you can do whatever's best for you. But in order to do this one, the geometry goes in a circle around the bottom of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to click, and we're going to go in a straight line across and get, about that much of it. And then we're going to right click and say select, geometry selection, select loop. Now you notice it selected all the way, let's set that as, there we go. And you can see it selected the loop all the way around it. Now we got lucky on that one. So now the next piece we want to do is get the rest from, say, the top to the bottom here, so we can get this whole section and name it a different mat zone. So in order to do that, I'm going to right click again, and I'm going to say grow selection. Now it's got a second one. You may have to do this a couple times. Grow selection again. And as it does it, it's going to keep going. And let's see. More. Now that may be enough, but we might want to catch this last bit. And let's see if that goes too far. No, that's pretty perfect. So now that we're here, we can look underneath and say, did it get everything? Did it get the bottom? Did it get the side? It's pretty close. If you want to go in here and select these extra bits, you could. We can try one more, right click and grow selection and see if it goes too far. No, got the rest of it. Okay, so that's pretty good right there. If you have to add more by hand, what you want to do is use your command key on a Mac, or I think it's control on a PC, and that will add to your selection. Just got to be real careful as you go through there. And it's kind of tricky, but try it. You'll get used to it and see if you can get it to work. Some things are really complicated. Others are fairly easy, like this one. So we've got that section, and we want the waistband to be by itself. So what we're going to do is come over here. We're going to assign the geometry and say create surface from selected. So we're going to say okay, and then we're going to name it waistband and say accept. Now watch over here what it's going to do. It's going to reduce these, or it's going to reduce this number and put a second listing here. So we're going to say accept, and it does it, and it turns it white because it has no texture on it now. It kicks the texture out, and you'll see this number has gone down, and this has told me the amount of polys that we've got over here. And it's now called waistband. Okay, so we have one section. Now let's move on to the other section and see how well those take to this. So we've got the armhole here, and we're going to start selecting it. Same thing, just kind of go down a little bit. Oops, got a little too much. We might have to start over. So we're going to say select loop. Nope, see, you got an extra piece. So that's okay. Just click anywhere and start over and say, okay, try to stay in a straight line if you're trying to do loops. And then we're going to say selection and select loop. Now it went all the way around. Great. So it's a little tricky, so be patient with it. So we're going to right click again and tell it to be grow selection. And it got it. Let's take a quick look and see, is it quite enough? Not quite, because see, we've got some on the edges that didn't get. I'm holding down that key, and I'm just going to go around it if I need to and see if I can get them all. And I'm just getting that outside edge. And take your time if you need to. The loop doesn't always work. And you can see it kind of picking those up. And I go through some and I let off the mouse, and I go through a little bit more. Let off the mouse just so that I don't overlap and grab too many things. Now ideally you would have wanted done this in a different program where the model would have already done it for you, but if you want to modify, you can, And like I said, this is just down and dirty. It's not for getting ready to sell a product, but it'll work for a render. And see, I went too far, so I'm going to hit Command Z or Control Z, and then it'll take it off, and then I'll hold down my Command key again and just redo it. So don't get stressed out if it gets the wrong thing. Okay, so that's pretty good right there. That's not too bad. So now I have that one armhole. So I'm going to do the same thing and right click and say Assignment, Create Surface from Selected, and I'm going to call it, this is reversed, so it's going to be right arm, accept, and it's going to go ahead and grab those. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and then I'm going to combine them so that they get changed together. Unless you want two different color armholes, then it's up to you. Let's come in here and do the same thing, and I'm going to zoom in here. Okay, so we're going to go over these again, and then right click and try select loop, and it got the whole circle. We should have started there on the other one. So that's pretty good. Now the next question is, will it keep going? This is always an adventure. If we say right click again and say selection, grow selection, it did. That works better. So you'll find little things that'll work better for you. So, and you can see here it's a Command plus to add. So if you don't want to do that, let's see if we need one more after this. Well, we need one more. So this time I'm going to hit Command plus, and it went too far. So I'll undo that. So maybe that last loop, select, grow selection. Oh, that worked better than the other one. So now we've got that set up. Let's see if we're about the same on both sides. Do we have an extra little bit? It's probably okay. Okay, so we're going to add that one, save that one out. So once you've got that, you're going to go ahead and right click and then say the assignment, add assign to surface, and tell it to go to the right arm. And now it's going to have those together, so that doubled up. And we'll ignore this default for right here. So now you've got your right arm is all one. You might want to rename that to be arm holes. Okay, now we're going to turn back and go over here. Now that will take textures at the same time. So the last piece we're going to do is the trim around the neck. So we're going to grab one, maybe, well, let's see. I'm going to grab one here. That's probably too far. Zoom in a little bit. We start from the inside. Let's try that. And select loop. Okay, that's good. Now let's try that again and tell it to grow selection. Good. Grow selection. And this may go one too far. Let's see. One more time. Okay, that's good. So we've got it there. We've got pretty much all of that section, and we're ready to make that one. So we'll right click again and tell it to assign surface or create surface from selected, and we'll call this neck, and we'll say accept. Okay, so now if you notice, you've got the waistband, the main vest, the neck, and the armholes. And what you're seeing over here is now this has extra stuff. So you'll be able to apply stuff to that surface. This one has 0. I wouldn't worry about it. We can tell it to remove it. And now that it's 0, you can get rid of it if you accidentally make an extra one. But now you've basically got those 4. You've got extra sections here. And let's back out and try to now apply textures to this. And whatever you've created is turned white. Don't worry, it'll go right over top of it. It's because it kicks the textures out. So let's go back to our content library, and we'll go up to some of the ultra shaders, which is what we're using here. You can do this with any shader package. Just make yourself some extra zones. So we're going to go to the sweaters, and we're going to do shaker stitch for this main section. So we're going to be on sweater vest itself because that's the main piece. We're going to apply the full white. And don't worry about what size this looks like in the viewport. It actually shows up in the iRay preview. And that's white, and we're going to apply, whoops, we need to get off the geometry tool, that would help. Surface selection, this one, and that one we're going to do as trim. So we're going to throw the full white trim on that. And we don't have to replace that. We can just right click, copy that selected surface, and then select the neck and the armholes and paste that on there. So now we've got our base set up, and now we need to add some colors. So let's come to, this is the easiest part. We will get the neck, the armholes, and the waistband, and we're just going to colorize those. So let's go look at our base colors. If you are not familiar with this shader setup, we covered that in a prior video on the page for Ultra Shaders business class, and you can go through the overall of how this all works. But I'm just going to change the base color here and go to cottons, and we're going to make this a nice teal because that's my favorite color, so I use it for everything. Let's go ahead and throw that on there. Okay. And then we're going to go to this one, and we're going to add a pattern. So we're going to grab a pattern overlay, and we can do argyle like that. Maybe we just want a different color argyle. So we'll throw the argyle pattern overlay on that. You can't see it, so let's go back to iRay so we can see what we're doing. You only see it in iRay. You don't see the pattern overlay without it. Okay, so it's come in as gray. It's not quite what we want yet. So let's do a color for that, and we'll go to cottons and wools, and we'll choose the same teal color so it matches. And there you go. So I'm just going to click this one so that you don't have to look at that nasty orange or yellow outline. So that's it. You're done. You've created some materials. Maybe you want to make this a little bigger, so we'll go to our utilities and tell it to be, let's see, let's go to pattern size 3 and maybe push it up a little bit. And that's a little better, maybe even bigger. So there you go. You now have multiple zones, and you can apply it and customize your pieces as you like. I've done this on lots of things. Sometimes stuff like shoes gets really busy or complicated, and you got to be a little bit patient. It depends on what you've got and how it was modeled. So if it frustrates you and you don't want to do it, then give up, use something else. But a lot of times you can do something quick like this and get a completely different look from stuff you already own. And you can also be looking in the store for stuff that you may like. Maybe you don't like the textures, but you want to grab it anyway and retexture it yourself to something that you see in your head. Okay, one last thing we were going to show you, which was how to save this piece in case you want to use it later. You may want to use it in another scene, or for something else, and you don't want to waste all the work that you've done. And you can probably, if you're doing it in scene, you can probably just save it along with your scene, but that makes it kind of hard to get to without opening that whole scene again. So there's other ways of doing this, like saving it as a wardrobe or a piece of clothing or a prop asset. But the easiest, quickest way is to come over here and just maybe make yourself a folder of just a scene subset, and then you can merge it in and fit it to whatever you need to later. So what I might do is come over here to your main section and make yourself a folder of that type of stuff. So what I would do is, you'd probably do this in your main DAZ 3D library, but I'm going to do it in here in my dev library, and just right click and create a subfolder and call it my stuff, whatever you want to call it, and say okay, and you've got a folder here. And then as long as you've got it selected, we'll come over here to, I think this is number 2, and you'll say make sure it's selected. You don't have to worry about selecting the matte zones. Just make sure that in your scene, the object you want is selected. And then just say the little plus mark here, choose scene subset, and go ahead and name it, and we'll call it sweater with zones, whatever you want to call it, and hit save. And it's going to ask you if you didn't, it's going to ask you whatever's in the scene. So we don't want the camera, we don't want 1, we want sweater vest 2. And you can compress it if you like, and then say accept. And it's going to go ahead and save it as a scene subset. So you can then open another scene, be in a completely different scene, and just double click this and the sweater will come in. And you can then do fit to or whatever you need to put it onto the model you want to wear it. It's up to you if you want to make a new little thumbnail for it and a pop-up, if you want to get that fancy. We did cover that in the other video, how to make these PNGs, but just for general purposes, you can run out a render like this at, say, 256 by 256, and as long as you name it the same as this, you would name it sweater with zones.tip.png. That would be sweater with zones.tip.png. and put it in the same folder. That's going to give you the roll up. And then if you do one at 91 by 91 and name it sweater with zones.png, you get those two files. One is a .tip.png and one is a .png. 91 is the smaller one and 256 by 256 is the bigger one. Put them in the same folder. If you go into your back end and drop them in the same folder, then you'll have a nice thumbnail. You can throw away this one. This one will be named this name .duf.png, and you can throw that away because it makes a really nasty little thumbnail. It's not pretty at all. So that's it. We should cover that in depth in the other video, so you can watch that if you want to do that, and you can kind of take it from there. So that'll do it for now. Have fun with the shaders. Have fun with material zones, at least as a beginning. If you haven't played with them yet, they're really, really handy. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.